about me, because I see some familiar faces also. But so my name is Ondrej. I'm based in Prague, so Central Europe, and I'm used to be, I would say, an agile coach like many of you. And I did my master's in the software engineering many years ago. And I did a Ph.D. in something called enterprise engineering, specifically focused to topics such as building so-called evolvable structures. I would say nowadays we call it more like agile structures of software systems or organizations. And yeah, it was already said, I'm a CEO of two, say, sister companies. One is called AgiLawyer, which is a consultancy firm focused on the legal industry. The second one is COPS Solutions, that it's an IT service provider, mostly focused to build solutions in the fintech and in the legal tech area. And yeah, so that's pretty much who I am. And I was actually thinking of a lot of, we are going to speak about AI, crisis, future, coordination, collaboration, agile. I was thinking what should probably be then basically on the very first slide. And I was actually, in the end, kind of convinced, okay, I will put there that one. This is the picture of one of my three sons' birthday party. And basically why I decided to put it here is that they are sort of like a little superheroes, I think. And I mean, like, in this particular case, they are super collaborative. They are very agile. They think that they may change the world, which I believe they could, for the better. And in the same time, on that picture, they are simply having a good time. I mean, like, probably the good time as I used to have when I was a kid, more or less not really dealing with any significant challenges. And I would say I appreciate that. But the reason why I'm putting it here is that I'm starting to be a little bit worried about, because I'm not really sure if these little superheroes, when they grow, will be actually really living in the world that we know, than in the world that we can somehow live in and feel safe. Why I think that is that if you just think about what was happening in the past, say, 3 to 4 years. It was COVID. COVID was more or less in a couple of hours or days made us to be on the lockdown pretty much all around the globe. Out of sudden, none of us knew what's going to happen, how we should respond, and was a global crisis. And think of the war in Ukraine. Accidentally, millions of people from day to day had to flee the Ukraine, and they were fighting for their life. Think about the global warming. Like, I mean, like, I know it mostly here around Europe, but just this year, it was the earthquake in Turkey. It was the wildfires in Greece. And basically what connects all of these things is that they somehow quickly become a global crisis. At least I have this impression. What I don't exactly know, and I would appreciate if there was any research that would somehow explain that. But my feeling is that some of those global crises tend to become, or some of those crises tend to become global crises very fast. Maybe it's because of the AI. Maybe it's because of the capabilities of artificial intelligence to, produce fake news, or basically because of it is capable of more or less doing any even physical changes all around the globe remotely. But nevertheless, it feels like that AI may be sort of like a booster to those global crises, or to those crises, and could basically more or less challenge us in the sense of responding to this crisis super fast. On the other hand, there seems to be, let's call it a good AI, which might be the AI that we all, I would say, appreciate. Could be the AI that helps us to come up with the treatment for COVID-19, or it could be an AI that helps us to retrieve information from basically large knowledge bases of, I would say, changing information, fast changing information. So my impression is that now we are really entering, I would say, a phase where there are, on one hand, I would say, bad AIs and capabilities of these things to somehow accelerate the crisis. And on the other hand, we would probably need to be able to respond. And on one hand, with having a super collaborative environments, such as agile teams that could respond fast and right to whatever happens. But in the end of the day, having these agile teams somehow supported by artificial intelligence that could help them to do the decisions right and basically very, very fast. So this is more or less what I'm observing, and I'm kind of more or less bringing this as a topic that it could be quite challenging for the future generation to really cope with that. And just to somehow frame what we are going to talk about today, it's been last year when I was invited to deliver a keynote on the Agile DC, speaking about the war in Ukraine and how we have actually built sort of like a collaborative environment to help, I would say, volunteers responding to certain global crises. Today, basically, it's gonna be more or less like an updated version of what some of you already seen, but I would like to have it more fit into a little bit broader context, in the sense of more like a solution that we have had an opportunity to build because of the crisis that could potentially help solving eventually other crises. So more or less the talk is about to just, first of all, give you an overview on how fast you can actually really build a project such as, we call it Agile Clearing House, to respond to the global crisis, and use it more or less such a crisis as an opportunity to build something new, test hypotheses, and basically see how the things are, let's say, evolving on the global scale. And we will wrap up with just basically some of the thoughts we have now when it comes to combining agile practices and when it comes to combining them with artificial intelligence innovations. So where the story starts, I mean, like, just think of February 2022. Think of basically me here in the very same office where I am now, based in Prague, approximately 1,000 kilometers from Ukraine. And I was watching more or less the news, what's really happening, and I realized, hey, there seems to be a war in Ukraine, and it's just started. And I mean, like, you are really desperate, basically, even being quite distant from that. So I couldn't even say how desperate the people were who were forced to flee the country. And that's basically why there I'm sharing with you this picture is like, turning off the TV. Because I think that for many, their everyday struggles and basically joys were exchanged by really fighting for their bare life, and not just their life, but for the life of their families that some of them had to separate. So this was how it all started. You just feel desperate and you have absolutely no clue what's going to happen and how you could actually help as an agile coach. The great thing is that after every dark night, there is a bright morning. And what was happening basically here around Europe, but I would say in the end of the day, all around the globe, was that the people were really voluntarily helping. I think it is quite an agility in practice in the end of the day, because some of the people were taking their cars, they went to the border with Ukraine to pick some of the Ukrainian families. Some of the people were kind of voluntarily waiting at the train station to help, like preparing sandwiches and these type of things. And basically, I was just wondering, okay, so how I could help with under this circumstances. Should I send some money somewhere? Should I take my car and go to the Ukraine to pick some of the families? I just didn't know. And it really feels you are quite desperate in that situations, I can tell. I would say that I got quite a clear answer on how I can contribute as an agile coach or a person who is somehow into transparency or building agile ecosystems or companies. I got a call from a good friend of mine, Stepan, who is an international lawyer. who said, "Hey, Ondrej, I really don't feel good about what's really happening now in Ukraine, and I think that it will result in a global migration that we haven't seen for a period of time." And I have an idea, and I think that basically the people will be all around the globe challenged with finding information that will help them to get visa, that will help them to, reunify with the family, that will help them to maybe incorporate the business or reincorporate the business that was well working in Ukraine in another country. So many of those things will be probably quite important for them. So what about building like a website where we would have, kind of consolidate this content across all the countries where the people potentially travel? And because I'm a lawyer, I have a good network. I mean, of international colleagues, so they will probably help us so that we can actually really build this type of thing. And I was, telling Stepan, "Hey, look, Stepan, I understand the idea. Nowadays, given all these technical innovations, you can probably build up solutions or websites like that super fast. It's not really a rocket science. The rocket science is actually to really get the content and get the content fast and have the content up to date." Nevertheless, I was like, okay, I can help. At least I can do something. So we built this little project. We called it UA.support. UA is more or less a shortcut of Ukraine here around Europe, like all the Ukrainians to have it on their car plate. So we assume that the people may remember this brand UA.support when we introduced it. So we built it like more or less having in mind, on one hand, provide the information, but on the other hand, we wanted to experiment with one thing, that we would potentially connect the people who will get to troubles, who will need certain legal assistance, with a lawyer that would help them, and ideally the lawyer that who would help them free of charge. So we introduced more or less these. I mean, nowadays there are three, because later we realized that connecting people like that costs money, and it's actually not the cheapest thing. So nevertheless, the most important buttons are: I need help, I'm a Ukrainian, I need help in Germany with visa, with, I don't know, whatever type of challenges I am facing now. I offer help. I'm a lawyer. I do really care of what's happening in Ukraine. I want to help basically with my, on behalf of my CSR activities to anyone. So this is what we tried. I mean, like at this stage of the project, when you clicked the button, it actually only sent us an email. We just wanted to experiment of if anyone would be actually using it. But someone was. So, I mean, like we got the first request from Olena, a teacher from Ukraine, who said, "Hey, I'm kind of stuck in Germany and I would really need to move. I am here more or less with my two little kids, and I don't really know what to do. And I would appreciate if there is any legal approach that I could use to speed up basically my movements around Europe." We got another one that was from Julia, who was a lady around 58, and who said, "Hey, I had to leave Ukraine, and I come from Mariupol, where basically the Russian authorities are nowadays basically entering. I have a flat there, and I'm a little bit worried that I may lose the rights to that flat, because like there are totally different authorities than there were than before." And we were also getting request similar to this one. You probably don't understand it. I didn't understand it either, because it's in Ukrainian. And this was basically the most of the requests we actually got. We couldn't understand it. Just for your overview, this one is from Alex, who is a 13 years old kid who had to basically travel on his own without his parents, and he was challenged because he couldn't open a bank account as a kid. He was underage. So nevertheless, if you are building projects like this and you actually really want to understand that there is certain need, then you have some, I would say, evidence that there is a need. And in the end of the day, as we know now, basically, that it was approximately 8 to 10 millions of people who fled Ukraine. So there must have been like hundreds of thousands of people who were getting to these situations, like that few examples I just gave you. So nevertheless, there is a need. So we are receiving requests. We understand some of them. We don't understand basically everything. It's in Ukrainian, and we are just receiving emails. So we don't have any lawyer to help at this stage. Nevertheless, challenge number one: how to understand basically these requests. So I gave a call again to Stepan, a good friend of mine who started this project with me, and I said, like, hey, Stepan, look, we are receiving certain requests through this platform that we invented. And by accident, do you maybe have some Ukrainian lawyer around? And he was like, yeah, some months ago, there was a Ukrainian student who was interested in internship here in our office in Prague. Maybe I can give her a call. And he did. He gave a call to Katerina, who basically was a girl who just graduated at Ukraine, and she was based in Ukraine at that moment. And basically, she said, "Okay, I want to help with that. I would say, what else I should do?" So she spent like 4 days traveling from Ukraine with the evacuation train, buses. It was super difficult move, I would say, to come over to Prague to help us start this project more or less from scratch. So challenge number one, we understand what the people want. The challenge number two is that we don't have the lawyers to actually somehow get involved to helping the people. So I gave another call to Stepan, and I said, hey, look, Stepan, we have another problem because, we already understand what the people need, but we don't quite understand, we don't really have the lawyers to satisfy these needs, and we would need some. And Stepan was like, okay, so how many lawyers you need? And I was like, like a lot. I mean, like, and from where? Like, probably from around the globe. So, okay. And then Stepan was basically already spending days and nights writing to the organizations that are putting together the lawyers and asking them if they would be so kind and basically encourage and invite their members to join project that we have just a couple of days ago started. So, I mean, like, you can imagine that there could be sort of like questions coming around why these people should actually join a startup at this stage. Nevertheless, I would say it didn't really took a long time. And I got a WhatsApp message from one of the, say, early adopters, lawyers who joined the platform, Nadine, who is German and who just texted me and said, hey, Ondrej, I just managed to speak to the German Bar Association, and they promised that they will encourage the members to join the platform. I was like, okay, perfect. This sounds great. So how many members do they have? And she said 150,000. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, like at that moment, I realized this is going to be a big thing because, we had absolutely no infrastructure behind the scenes. Like the only thing what would happen that we would receive basically emails from the people who are interested in joining the platform that is actually not really existing at that stage. Nevertheless, I don't really know if this happened because we got quite a few Germans that were interested in joining, but it was not in the end like that much. But I would say the good thing was that when the German Bar Association officially said, hey, okay, we are officially inviting members to join, we could already refer to that and we could go to the Polish bar associations to ask them to do this very same thing. We could go to the Romania, Czechia, and it somehow kind of really accelerated. Nevertheless, challenge number two, we have lawyers. At least we have lawyers on the waiting list. So challenge number three was, okay, how to coordinate that. And you may imagine that at this moment, I was not really giving a coach to Stepan because I am to people like you. I'm sort of like an agile coach or a person who is, I would say, equipped to build ecosystem that is transparent, agile, where the people are kind of, grouped to teams and where the people can actually really are enabled to work. So I was like, okay, then we need Kanban. Kanban is quite a good thing, like for visualizing the workload. But in this particular case, the Kanban is actually quite a big Kanban, which you may imagine. So I was wondering, okay, so how to do that? So we were receiving at this moment already like tens of requests for aid, and we were receiving tens of requests for being part of the system, and how to really kind of make this work somehow. So challenge number 3, what software you actually use for that? And I would say certainly many of us do have experiences with solutions such as Jira, Dvorak, Trello, and all those things. But the problem is that they are actually quite expensive if you want to do this on a large scale. So we didn't have time. Then basically what I did, I literally went to LinkedIn and I Googled a vice president of one of these big, say, market leaders when it comes to the task tracking solutions or basically project management tools. And he didn't really know me. I didn't really know him. I just basically really searched for a vice president of one of these big companies. And I just dropped him a message saying, hey, Joe, I would need a license, unlimited, for basically a software to coordinate the help to Ukraine. Could you help me with that? And I mean, like, I didn't really quite expect that he would ever answer me. But nevertheless, the day after, I got a response, hey, Ondrej, you will get unlimited license to our software, help Ukraine. And I would say this was the moment when I realized, oh, Jesus Christ, then we probably really have all these things that we need to start building a big collaborative environment where I would say hundreds of volunteers could get the work to be done, and where we could visualize the work to be done, basically triggered by the people in need, people from Ukraine, like people like families or individuals and etc. So this was more or less the stage which we got. And just for your overview, how it was really built, because it's not really like a huge Kanban. It was sort of like an ecosystem, or it is still an ecosystem of like many Kanbans. What we have done, we did like a Kanban for each and every country that was involved. So we created the Kanban for Germany, Kanban for France, Kanban for Czech Republic, for United States. And basically we were onboarding the volunteers to, we call it like an American team or German team or whatever. So more or less just we created the teams on the top of these Kanbans. And I mean, like the very first front line, I would say there was a Kanban for the help desk. So we have implemented a help desk. And on the help desk, we employed Ukrainian lawyers, so the people who could understand the requests, and in the same time who could somehow question if it is a request of the legal nature. If yes, then they were either directly responding to that, if it was a frequently asked question, sort of like a basic answer, or if not, then they were basically reformulating such a request as a legal case, and they were distributing such a legal case to the Kanban board of specific country that was involved. And as you know how these systems are working, basically then all the people in this particular country got notified, and they were encouraged to more or less drag and drop the, say, case from the column to the column processing and give a call to the person who is asking for help. So this is how it was designed from the very beginning. And what I could tell you is that what we learned is that at that moment we had to really employ the people to work on the help desk, help somehow building this whole environment, and it got quite expensive. And so what we did, we have organized, or we have incorporated a new legal entity, NGO. We called it Linking Help, like a connector of legal assistance. And we started to consider basically this UA.support as one of its applications. And as you may imagine, basically Katerina, the very first lawyer who we onboarded, became a managing director, so that she could basically basically be the one who is really kind of, putting sweat and tears to make the whole thing happen. So this was how it continued. I mean, like you can even see there a little timeline. So just think of that we already reached the state when we now have the NGO incorporated after like 5 weeks since the war has actually started. So it's actually pretty fast, I would say. So nevertheless, what was happening next? We were really accelerating, I would say. Because first of all, we got in a couple of days or maybe a week or two, we got to approximately 30 countries. So literally day by day, we were opening a new country and basically building up the infrastructure for the new country. At certain stage, we have been servicing approximately 100 requests per week. And I think that there were even basically days when it was maybe twice as much. And we reached the state when we got 300 volunteers on board. And I mean, like you can imagine, some of them are super active, some of them are a little active, some of them are not active at all. So like really like a normal distribution, I would say. So, I mean, like we're accelerating. Mostly we were around Europe, but we also got requests for legal aid in Argentina, Canada, US, Israel, and Singapore, and basically all around the globe in the end. So what was happening next? I mean, like we realized that the thing is really kind of moving. It's becoming quite big, and we really needed money because you couldn't really finance such a project on your own normally. So we got involved and we got great names. I mean, like Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, which is I think that one of the biggest NGOs on the globe, or specifically here around Europe. Vienna Insurance Group, which is basically an insurance company acting mostly around Europe, and I would say smaller donors and bigger donors. I mean, like, so in the end of the day, we got quite some buffer, financial buffer to really basically be convinced that we can move further. And I don't even count the in-kind investments of many companies who really donated their time to help us build the whole thing. So we were moving further, we were accelerating, and I could tell that we have been at that stage basically presenting the project all around the globe. We were at the International Bar Association conference in Miami, in the BAI conference in New York, and basically legal conferences such as PLPL, Law World. And there was this keynote, as some of you may remember, in the Agile DC in Washington. So we are more or less all around the globe, I would say. And I can say that at that moment, I was really convinced that this type of approach, like a global Kanban or basically a global ecosystem of Kanbans, is really a way how to, respond to the global crisis. And I'm still convinced it is the way. But nowadays, I'm a little bit more, I would say, adjusting the approach, and specifically even when it comes to the artificial intelligence and so on, with what you will see next. Nevertheless, this was the stage where we were, and we were accelerating, and I mean, like we were facing quite a few challenges along the way. And I would say that we always found a solution for them. So lessons learned, maybe for you, if you would be building similar projects of that type of nature, what we learned. First of all, our objective was no emails. Like we have to basically build the ecosystem the way that there will be absolutely no email correspondence, because in such a large ecosystem, you cannot really handle it. We were convinced that it's an ecosystem of Kanban or Scrum boards. Scrum boards we were using internally because basically the project was moving fast. So we had an internal team of the people like lawyers, IT experts, etc. So that we were really kind of planning ahead, like one week. We were having like 1 week sprints to kind of innovate, and basically come up with the new ideas of what to do. And we were more or less basically convinced that there shouldn't be any managers. So there shouldn't be a specific person per Germany, per France, who would be really kind of saying, hey, you do this, you do that, you do this. So really no command control environment. What we learned, which is actually quite interesting, is that we as agilists, or basically the people from the field, are somehow, we really want to build an environment that enables people to work, that is really kind of self-managed, that are really self-managed. So there is no command control. There are no managers. What we learned that it's not really something which is natural for many cultures and many countries. So there were definitely countries in such an ecosystem which were not really used to the command control, that they were simply not operating at all. And the thing you had to do was more or less to kind of got in and explain them that there is really no manager who would say, you do this, you do that. Simply, you are a bunch of people who is now responsible for helping as much as they can to the requests that were more or less prepared on the Kanban board. So it took us a bit. I mean, like in some countries, it was supernatural. It was going really fast. The people kind of, like out of the box understood how it's gonna work. But there were countries where it was not really the case. Balancing the number of requests and volunteers. This is another quite an interesting challenge, I would say. We were really, I would say, experiencing this. I think it's called bystander effect. So there were situations where you had a Kanban board where there was like one task, one legal aid request, and pair like 40 volunteers, and no one was really was interested in helping to that. And basically, then there were a situation when there were too many requests per few, and certainly at that stage you don't really have the capacity to handle it all. So balancing this number of requests and volunteers is sort of like a psychological challenge, as we learned over time. And I would say that the most difficult topic which we were challenged with was the demotivation of volunteers. Because at the very beginning, when the war in Ukraine came, we were in the situation when many people wanted to help, and many people wanted to either donate or basically, donate their time and expertise, such as the volunteer lawyers. And the longer it took, the less they were somehow interested in really kind of being involved. We got the solutions. I would say that we were more or less giving their sort of like certificates, so sort of like thing that they could share on the social media. They could somehow, manifest that they are really doing a lot of CSR activities to help. So that's, I would say, the three main challenges, if I could say, that we have been experiencing in such a global Kanban ecosystem, Agile Clearing House, as we call it. And I would say that there is probably the biggest challenge that we have learned in this type of projects is that you need to really find who is actually interested in financing that. Because if you would say look for donors to a project such as Doctors Without Borders or these type of organizations, then it's somehow easy to understand for many of us, that there is a doctor, on the battlefield, and that he is helping or she is helping to a little kid or whatever, and we somehow naturally donate. But when it comes to the legal aid or legal assistance, that's very difficult to really make it somehow understandable for the general public. So I would say that this was the stage when we started to realize, okay, legal aid or legal assistance is a very difficult topic, and we would probably need to figure out how to reposition or pivot the whole project so that we could really be sustainable financially. What happened next is that we decided, it was somewhere beginning of this year, March, and we decided, okay, under these circumstances, we should probably start becoming a social enterprise. So I don't know if you know this concept, social enterprise. It's more or less the system where you have on one hand certain commercial activities that helps you to earn money, and on the other hand you spend the money on something that does like a social impact. So this was the, I would say, idea around March this year, when we said, okay, so we really need to move further with that concept, because it will be super difficult to really be only relying on donors. And I would say, coincidentally, around March, it was always also the time when it was sort of like a hype, like AI, GPT, and all of these type of things were kind of coming. And we were thinking, okay, hey, maybe this could be an approach, because if we would really come up with eventually even the commercial application of such a AI that could potentially help with the aid or legal aid or any type of aid, And if there was really kind of a commercial interest in having that, maybe we could then, use this very same thing even for the non-profit activities, such as helping with the crisis or basically providing the legal aid. So that was more or less a thing that became like our main objective: how to become a social enterprise and how to really shift from really just non-profit to a social enterprise and ecosystem, providing the legal aid with the help of AI, with the help of Agile, and basically this kind of Kanban ecosystem. So what AI we then actually more or less came up with. And this is where I would say we are getting a little bit closer to this combinations of AI and Agile in the end of the day. So just before I will share that with you, I want to also kind of like mention that if you are shifting more or less to become a social enterprise or become an organization that is helping people access to justice, which is quite interesting, is that this is basically one of the United Nations goals. So you are more or less directly kind of already competing on the market of other organizations that are helping people access to justice. And if you are more or less then basically shifting away from only helping Ukraine, such as we did, because we originally said, okay, we will be only helping to Ukraine, but now we will try to help other people in need, such as Turkey, or nowadays we are even considering Israel, by the way, then we are really basically more or less shaping a product in this type of field. So access to justice aligned with the UN goals, and you are in, I would say, in the end of the day, highly competitive environment. So nevertheless, AI. So what we learned and what we think is probably actually the way how, at least I believe, the AI could be or should be combined with Agile, specifically in the situation where you want to use this combination for responding to global crisis. So first of all, what we have already prototyped during this past 5 to 6 months is that if you are operating such an ecosystem where you have like really kind of a large knowledge base generated by all the volunteers involved, like in our case, thousands of people in need, thousands of cases, then the thing is that what is quite challenging for many volunteers is to learn from what the other volunteers are actually doing for their clients they are helping. And it could be actually quite very similar things. So we have shaped this, we call it cognitive AI assistant, which is basically a technology that is more or less working with this large knowledge base of what the volunteers generate. I think that it's quite similar in the business. If you are in the business and you have a number of teams, you need to share the knowledge of the team, like from one team to another or from one person to another. So how you actually do that? So in our particular case, we have been shaping this cognitive AI that was really kind of working with the large knowledge bases of the cases, of jurisdictions, of certain legislations, frequent asked questions. And it's basically it's built with the objective to, whenever there is a case of certain person, then it would simply tell you, okay, we think that this particular person in Germany should get the legal aid, and we think that this is probably the answer of you as a lawyer. So it's an assistant of the lawyer. It's not really replacing the lawyer. It's actually supporting him with the knowledge from the whole community. So that's one, I would say, direction that we took was like, okay, we have to build an AI assistant for these teams that are really acting in the legal aid so that they could respond faster. The second objective we had, and I think that it's to me more or less the thing that kind of illustrates how I imagine that the Agile should be really used on large scale to help responding to the global crisis. So what I think is basically quite necessary that first of all, you don't really have just sort of like a bare Kanban where you would more or less have a volunteers per Germany and any case in Germany. But what is much more tricky is that you would really find and target the volunteer that could actually help, because he or she has an experience with helping this particular type of cases, and he or she do really has the capacity to help with on behalf of the CSR activities that he may do. So that's, I would say, one thing. Like you need to be much more concrete in the matchmaking between the legal aid requests and the person or volunteer or team member or however you call it who is able to deliver it. And this is also a concept that we started to work on, which is basically more that instead of inviting the volunteers to join sort of like a global ecosystem of Kanbans, that instead of that, we will more or less just build an artificial intelligence that is, on one hand, receiving requests, on the other hand, knowing who might be the right people to answer these requests, and who would simply just make these two together. And then what it would do, it would basically integrate with the Kanban board at certain company, for instance, and it would simply present the case to that certain company who is probably having enough capacities to help with that. So this is how we are now more or less kind of shaping the vision of such a global, say, AI/agile ecosystem that could help responding to I would say, difficult challenges such as global crisis. First of all, find the appropriate person, say, okay, you are probably the volunteer who can help with that, and you do, according to our evidence, have capacities on behalf of the CSR activities. Second, we think that this person in your surrounding is probably going to require this treatment. Here it is. That's basically based on the cumulative knowledge of all the volunteers involved. And ideally, such a case or task or topic would be presented in the board of certain organization that such a person is really part of, so that he or she would have seen it like the next day morning. So that's how we are kind of like now shaping the future of like global scaled agile with the AI support in the end of the day. For you, just to understand us a little bit in numbers of what this project actually really kind of delivered so far. I mean, like, even though we have now sort of like a Christmas pause because like we don't have such an engagement of volunteers at this stage, but we have reached directly or indirectly connecting approximately 5,000 individuals so far in this 1.5 years. So, and if you would somehow calculate how much each and every case would actually really probably cost commercially, then you could maybe see that the help we have provided on behalf of such a global ecosystem is approximately $2 million US. So that's where we got, I would say, after this, say, 1.5 year of attempting building a global clearinghouse with a Kanban, with AI. And I would say I'm quite glad that at this stage we also got to the discussions with the government here around the Czech Republic and Europe to really shift this platform to become sort of like, would say, integrated in the traditional ecosystem of the aid or of the integrations of refugees and migrants and anyone in need. So that's more or less the story of linking help and how we have been doing it with the lean, like a more or less non-profit startup. Nowadays, shifting it to a little bit more commercial things, so that we would bring even like angel investors in the game and etc. Just to wrap up for you the whole talk. So I would say, what in my opinion, AI seems to be sort of like catalyst for accelerating the global crisis. I don't have any evidence. I would appreciate if you would have any research that would somehow, have something to do with that, because it feels like that AI could be a threat in that direction to really kind of accelerate these type of things. Second, if you are people from, like entrepreneurs, or you are building your own startups, what I learned that like really crisis could in the end be actually quite a good opportunity to shape new ideas, to test hypotheses, or basically try on new products, because the things could go super fast. I mean, like, I would say I'm happy that we got a chance in the end of the day to build and test basically such a platform, because I can tell that under normal situations, building legal aid platform with that many people in such a short time would be impossible. So Crisis could be actually a great opportunity. The last but not least, agility. I really think that what we are facing now is that everything is changing super fast. Everything is moving super fast, and there is a big uncertainty ahead of us. And I think that really Agile was actually built for that. So the Agile collaboration, teamwork, I think, are more or less essential for the organizations to respond fast and right. And ideally, along the way, also respond to some of the tasks and topics that help, with the global crisis, such as the legal aid and etc. AI, as I said, I see it like a thing that shouldn't really kind of replace us. Hopefully, it's not the case. But it should be more of a support. And one of the directions I see is that have it like a support that help the teams, help the organizations to really fast generate the knowledge, so that the teams could, during their retrospective, during their basically ceremonies, do much faster decisions to whatever happens, so that they could respond faster and better. So that's more or less all from me. And again, like, really thanks a lot for having me here. If you would like to follow the journey of linking help, you can find the link here on the slide. If you would like to connect me on the LinkedIn, happy to chat, happy to link. And there is a QR code that basically directs you directly to my LinkedIn profile. So thanks a lot.